Welcome, guys, to Metalladium Pages. It's a great pleasure to talk with you about Tom Mold, this new beast, the enduring spirit, and more things related to the metal world. And when we're starting, why the band? I think with the next, well, this is a common question. So why the band delayed 5 years to release a new album? No, 4 years to release a new
Four
album.
years, 4 years. Well, I think we all wanted just like a general break after 2019. We put out Planetary Clairvoyance. We did a lot more touring than we thought we were going to do, and we were pretty burnt out. And then the pandemic hit, so we weren't practicing, which just gave us time to all kind of hang out, get better at our instruments, just grind away. I worked on some song ideas. I worked on some music on the side. Payson worked on some music on the side. And then when it felt right, we got back together. But because we didn't feel any expectations, because we didn't know when touring and playing shows was going to really happen again, consistently, we felt no rush. So we're just like, oh, we'll just take our time. And then that just kind of turned into a couple of years. Something like that. Yeah.
Okay. So other aspects, I remember, well, for me, this new album is really a different way to understand the music from Tom Mold, because I remember the first three, they are death metal and the weight of Finland scene, incantation scene, this kind of aspect. But now with this third album, it's very different. So how was the composition process of this new the Enduring Spirit process?
Well, I think for me, I had started working on some other music on the side, for a doom band called Dream Unending, and that, I'm writing these more slow riffs and like slow moving things that whenever I was like kind of playing death metal riffs, I wanted to play everything fast. So this record is a lot faster in general, I feel like. And when I was writing the songs, I was outside a lot, like exercising and running around. So I was just like listening to music that was just like got me excited. And then I was just like, records like Symbolic or something like that. And I was just like, oh, I want to write something like that, something super exciting that's like constantly on the edge of your seat. No real time to have to like just even process anything. I just kind of lots of quick hits. And I think Payson and Max really responded to that, and I think they were sort of like up for that. What do you think, Payson?
Yeah, I think what's made Tomb Mold is how catchy the riffs have been. And on Manor and Planetary, amidst all the murk and the dark, heavy sound, there's a lot of catchy riffs. So there's kind of melody buried there in the lower tones. Now on the new record, I still think melody is imperative, but we've put a lot more effort into making things that are melodious and a lot of things harmonizing and working together to make one sort of large, less dark sound, a brighter sound, more cohesive sound, I think. So yes, it is different for sure. I think a lot of the hooks are still very much there the way they always were. They're just being interpreted and put down a different way. So like Derrick said, yeah, with increased speed, maybe some different harmonies, very different bass playing. The bass playing has changed a lot. Derrick played bass on this. The bass is not just doing the root notes anymore as it did on the earlier records, which worked great on the earlier records, the root note bass stuff. It had this one big kind of enveloping feeling on Manor and Planetary, but now it's much more lively and complex as well. So yeah, it kind of just feels like a very accelerated version of what we did before, but yeah, with much more melody sprinkled all over the entire record.
Yes, even this new album is more progressive than the first three because it's very different. For me, especially, it's very different. So, and perhaps the pandemic affected to create this new album, because Derrick told me that you have more time to practice on the instruments, have more time to. A lot of musicians had a lot of time to these arrangements for the new album. So perhaps the pandemic was
for sure. That's
all
we had.
It was like
all we had was time.
Yeah, it was definitely a blessing in disguise. And then you have time to just also either revisit old records you liked, or discover new records, or discover old records you haven't heard, and just like you just feel so inspired and get excited off like new sounds, and then being like, oh, I want to take this idea and put it into my music. Like a record I got really hooked on was this there's this like kind of angular thrash band from Canada called Oblivion. And they
Okay,
have an
yes,
album
yes, yes,
called
yes.
From This Day Forward, and I just became so obsessed with that record. And I was like, oh, I want to write stuff like that, and just and then like trying to put my own spin on those ideas, and like yeah, but things like that. Yeah, we had a lot of time to just get excited about music, and then kind of take all that and put it into the record. So I think the record sounds really exciting, and I think that like kind of bleeds through in a way.
Yes, yes. Well, it's very different from me because I'm here the band since the 2017 since the first album. So I really the changes for me was huge, very
I
huge.
bet.
Even even if I relate it with the riffs of the schemes into the old albums, it's there. It's about for me it's evolution in some ways. In
For
some ways.
sure.
I remember that I spoke with you, Derrick, just by written email, written interview, and you told me at that in 2000, I can in 2019, about the your last album at that time. And I asked you a question. What's your opinion about now the bueno, at that time the death metal or the old school death metal is well, it's saturated because a lot of production bands, labels, production, blah 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 blah, and more things. And now with this new album, what's your opinion about? Did your opinion change perhaps for the saturated area into the old school death metal?
Oh yeah, probably. Yeah, and I think I think as I got better at guitar, it just also made me want to listen to the records that were, like the more like compressed technical records and stuff, and just sort of being like, oh, that stuff's cool. But what I like about our record is that, our record definitely has a little bit of like that squish and compression on it, but we managed to keep a lot of the natural sound of the guitars, which I was really happy about. And I think the drums sound so good on this record. Like they're so crisp, like everything just cuts through so well. So I'm definitely, yeah, I definitely love it.
Oh, okay, okay. Well, and talking about one aspect now, for me, it was very strange or weird. No, it was a surprise. Sorry, it was surprise when Enduring Spirit was a tremendous announcement because 2 days before the official release in September 15. That's curious. So why did you decide to do this everything under the bueno, behind the clouds or behind the everything? And 2 days later, you will release the first the digital and then the physical stuff. Why
Yeah.
did you decide this?
Um, I think the excitement. What do you think, Payson?
Yeah, it was a nice change. Because on our last album, the cycle for Planetary was quite long, and it was released very slowly, like one single at a time. And that's great. And seeing people get excited about a song and then subsequently get excited about an entire record is great. But we had a record of 43 minutes of brand new music. None of it had been previously released or in any sort of version. These were all songs no one had heard. We hadn't played them live, like they were completely brand new. So it really was the perfect time to say, okay, on Monday we have a new record coming out, and it's out Friday, and you haven't heard 1 second of it, and
Yeah.
people could take the whole thing in at once, like one big song. And I think it's a very cohesive record. I think it really flows nicely. And I think that's kind of the way we intended it to be heard, as one, the album to be listened to as an album, not a single, and 6 weeks later another single. And then by the time you hear the whole album, you're intimately familiar with 2 songs and 5 of them are new. It was way more fun for us to just absolutely blindside the people who enjoy our band. And I think they enjoyed it too.
Yep. Yeah, that is true. I really enjoy. And one thing that you
Awesome.
said about the singles, no, because I remember the Primordial Malignity appears in the words, just few singles. The second is said the same, the third is the same. But with this one, for me, it's impossible to select a single because the
Right?
album it entered in all ways. How
Yeah.
dynamics, textures, a lot of things happen with this album. It's very complicated album at the first time because I remember when they when they shared with me the album just to hear online and just here, man, I put in. I'm very excited about the new music But at that time, when I hear for the first time, I really expected this in the same vein for the first three albums, something more harder, something dense, this kind of stuff. When I hear progressive elements, I'm really surprised about this because I think this is the new way of the death metal development in the 5 or 6 years, because death metal with the old way, like Horrendous, like you mentioned Oblivion, a death
Yeah,
thrash
yeah,
in
yeah.
Canada. So now why do you decide to change completely the focus of the music in Tom Mold? Because it's not similar like the old way, the old
No, I think it was a way to keep things fresh for us, right? So we didn't feel like we were just writing the same record or anything. And then, one of the funnest parts about being in a band is writing riffs that challenge yourself, right? Like maybe you're like, I have this riff, but I can't play it yet. But if I keep practicing, in 2 weeks I'll be able to play it and it's going to be awesome. I think we just kind of set new challenges for ourselves, and just to yeah, I think it was just to like kind of push us. I don't know. What do you think, Payson?
Yeah, absolutely. It's nice to not feel like you're making the same record again, and yeah, for your own sake, because we love those records we made before this, but it's nice to do something different. And like I said before, I still think the DNA of Tumult is very present. Interestingly enough, you mentioned the band has changed a lot. I agree to an extent, but I wasn't in the band on Primordial Malignity. That was just Derrick and Max. I actually think this record has a lot in common with Primordial Malignity. It has the speed and the technicality, because from the point of view of a guitar player, those Primordial songs are tougher than Manor or Planetary. Manor and Planetary are a lot swampier, kind of chuggier, slower, like that cavernous death metal sound that people talk about. Primordial's pretty weird. It's kind of wacky. There's a lot of bizarre, sort of, really interesting labyrinthine
Yeah.
parts. So I feel like, yes, this I agree. It's certainly not Primordial Malignity 2, Primordial Harder, but it is. I think there's traces of that kind of sound, that sort of very weird, very fast sound are on Primordial, because Primordial, yeah, is a lot speedier and more of a twisty turny record compared to the other two. But yeah, to make something different, to be able to try different things, different effects, different sounds, watching Max do his thing, watching Derrick try new types of leads. I'm trying things for the first time, and once we were confident enough with our new ideas, and we put them down and we sharpened them and whittled them and made them fit, it was this kind of thing where it was like, here's this one, here's this cohesive album we've made that's just kind of like boom, 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 and it's just full of like little bursts of excitement. That's what I liked about it. All the little affectations and things that are peppered throughout it that pop out, whether it be guitar or drums or bass break, or me and Derrick doing even something simple as harmonics or dive bombs or octaves or whatever. Lots of room to play with stuff. A ton of fun. We've never done that on a record before, used effects so heavily. And Max was always there to sort of be the skeleton to the inside the flesh on the record, and give it this kind of like rigid, powerful, speedy feel, and then let Derrick and I kind of spread our wings and do a lot of interesting things. And then the vocals came last, and the vocals are undeniably still 100% death metal. People can say whatever they want about the music, and that's great. They could say, oh, it's prog now or whatever, and I don't disagree. There's progressive elements for sure. I still believe it's progressive death metal, the same way so many bands we love have done before, but those vocals are just purely, totally death metal. And I think that's I like that we did that, and I like that you can hear. I like that the vocals work really well with the guitar. So many leads going on at the same time. It gives the album a chaotic element too, which I really enjoy, because it is busy. But when you have something layered like this, it's rewarding to listen to multiple times. You're not going to hear it once and be like, I've heard it all. Like, you hear it a bunch, and then you're like, okay, now I'm hearing new things, or now I'm paying attention to this. And that's been really cool too, because I feel like it is a far more multifaceted record than the last two.
Just one, yeah. Well, other detail about this one, since Manor of the Infinity Forms, when a lot of colors, the third one is a lot of color, and now this one records. For me, I like a geek in some way, because I try to find the way between the three albums, Manor of Infinity Forms, then the planetary, now this album, because the cover arts for me reflects something peculiar, perhaps some conceptuals or some this kind of aspect, because it's very a sci-fi horror movies, this kind of aspect. Perhaps
Mm.
perhaps these last three albums are related with the lyrics, with the concepts, because it's very familiar, the three of us, well, the three of this.
Yeah, what do you
Yeah,
think?
absolutely. Yeah, for sure. There's certainly a thread that runs through all the records. I think they each have their own distinct personality, but none of them are a complete curveball, especially like lyrically. Like this one is a lot more cerebral and philosophical from a lyrical standpoint, but it's still talking about things that feel very foreign, very alien. And I think that's sort of the common thread of the records is almost tackling a foreign concept or foreign idea, or there's a lot of questions on this record that are asked, but I don't think any of the records is straightforward, and there's a certain degree of interpretation for all of them. And the themes of mortality are on all three records. Death, what it means to die, what it means to live, and this is a very common element of death metal in general. It's very easy to write off death metal as just being about gore, but you read so many lyrics from so many great bands, and it's so much more than that. And I think that the common thread with a lot of the tumult stuff is death, mortality, what happens, especially on the new record about what happens after death. These are the things I draw from the lyrics on the two mold records. And I haven't written any of the words, so I'm just as much a listener as anyone who's out there opening the LP.
Okay, okay. Now this is bueno, now this is your fourth album your third album with Bane, the 20 back spin. And when the first album was with Blood Harvest. And with for this, I think with a lot of attention that you have now recently with this new album, because I think I saw in the cover and the print cover of the Decibel magazine,
Yeah.
and a lot of things happened, more main interviews, a lot of good reviews around the world. Perhaps in the past, and now, did you receive some offers from the big labels like Century Media,
Oh,
Nuclear
sure.
Blast, Relapse Records, etc.?
Yeah, we have some of those labels have come calling, but we love 20 bucks spin, like we love the relationship we have with Dave who runs it, and we have a great arrangement. And I think it's fun for us because I think like every time we do something good, like it's fun to, talk to Dave about it. We have a pretty personal relationship with him at the label, and I think we just feel like this like kind of loyalty. But I love like when we do something good and he's along the ride with us, you know what I mean? And
Mhm.
anything we've needed he's come through on, like, like there's no we're not there's it's just I don't know, it's like arriving at Valhalla, like it's like we're there. Like we're good. I don't know, what do you think, Payson?
Those other labels that you mentioned are great. We've been fans of those labels, for as long
Yeah.
as we've listened to extreme music. Um, but I think the thing we really like about 20 Buck Spin is, one of the things is the expectations, because not we're not on like a 4 or 5 album deal. It's very much like a handshake thing. It's like, we're going to make a record. There's no pressure to tour. There's no, I need the record by the end of May. Like, none of that. It's just let us sort of do our own thing. And in that's kept a lot of stress off our shoulders as far as people that make music. So it's been nice to work at our own pace without fear of rocking the boat, or without the expectation that we have to play a lot of shows or make multiple records or whatever, because we ultimately do this to have fun, right? So there's always the fear that when something becomes more serious or more of a business, that the fun evaporates. You can find your passion, but once it becomes your job, there's always a chance that you're going to lose the part that you love. It's going to be gone because now it's an obligation. It's no longer a hobby or something you're interested in. So with 20 Buck Spin, I like the relaxed vibe has been great. And then when we tell Dave, hey, we're making a record, here's when we're recording it, we do it, we send it off, and it's not like, oh, I didn't get it in time, or I need this or I need that. It's chill, and we like that. That's worked really great for me anyway. I'm sure Max feels the same as well, because I think Max and I especially get kind of like frazzled by that kind of pressure. Like, we really like to have the time, to you know fully realize what we're doing, and sometimes it takes a minute. So
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, as
Yeah.
I mentioned, this enduring spirit for me. I'm 43 years old, and I'm to hear all albums. So I love the album, buy both the album. I'm waiting for my pre-order. But now, for me, I'm here from the perfect memory to the ending spirit of the calendar. I don't have preferred songs. I don't have which songs much better than the other. But the new generation are returning in time when hearing just picked singles, we get this etc. and the digital platform. They create a playlist and with
Yeah,
Spotify,
yeah.
YouTube, etc., blah 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 blah. So now, where's your point of view about now the singles are more predominant or more important than the albums, or like the 760 since the 60s to the 90s, the albums are very dominated the world, but now the singles are returning back into like the 40s and 50s. And what
Yeah.
motivates you to create an album when not in a world that just when in a world just preferred singles?
Yeah. Oh, I mean, I guess like I guess for us what matters, I guess maybe there's a way where we maybe like the people that just like to hear the singles. Maybe with this record we I don't know if we meant to say like we don't care, but it's like we're like we want it's like we either you're in or you're out. Like you got to listen to it or no. But I think what happens is I wonder if the single of this record will be determined by the listen count, on streaming services. If you have Spotify, it'll be like top 5 songs or something. But you know what I mean? Like all those, anything like that, I guess people will decide what their favorite song is on the new record by listening to it the most. And then that will become a top 5 song on a streaming service. And then that'll become the single from the record. So it's almost like the general listening audience gets to decide what the single of the record is. Do you know what I mean? Like it's an interesting concept. I bet you they picked the third song, "Will of Whispers," because that seems to be the song that everybody is going crazy for.
Okay, okay. One one thing that you said, the Payson is about now the style and the music of the Tom Mall with this enduring spirit, because as I said too, that you have more progressive elements, a little more technical. It's obviously death metal plays a lot of technical. Even you are from Canada, so it's normal that the band from Canada plays technical death metal nowadays.
Yeah.
We're the first.
since since the end of since the late 80s, it's normally the Canadian man related to technical death metal or progressive. It's normal. So, but for me, the people are very struggling with this aspect, trying to put a label: technical death metal, progressive death metal, just death metal, experimental death metal. I read a lot of trying to put a label from you. So, for you, what is the best way to label the band in style? Are you still considered a death metal band, or perhaps
Yeah.
you take
Yeah.
more control about? But because for me it's death metal, because as I said, you have you had run now all the riffs from the old ways in all the albums in this new one. But for the new people, all these kind of people say that it's progressive, technical. I don't know, a lot of
Yeah.
styles there. So for
Yeah.
you, how do you express your music? Or how do you call it your music?
I think it's still death metal. I mean, I like to compare like so you could listen to a record like Tomb of the Mutilated, right? By Cannibal Corpse, death metal. But to me, like the album Focus by Cynic is just as much death metal as the Cannibal Corpse one. It's just a different flavor. You know what I mean? But the thing that draws me into liking death metal is there on both records, which is just like sick riffs, cool solos, big moments. And it's like they both have those. It's just through a different, I don't know, it's just channeled differently. But to me, like this record is a death metal record for sure. Payson?
Yeah, I'd say it's death metal. People just love to put things into boxes. You see it in any sort of subgenre. I find people like to, see just how compartmentalized they can make music. You see it a lot in hardcore, because hardcore is usually like a hardcore punk being this like sort of larger umbrella. There's so many variations of it, and people debate until the cows come home about what type of hardcore it is. Is it emotive hardcore? Is it metallic hardcore, 90s hardcore, metalcore? all these things, and it's just like, yeah, but it's still ultimately hardcore. And I feel the same with metal. People can call this technical death metal. I take that as a point of pride, because if it sounds like technical death metal, that means we played well on it. Because if we played like shit, people would say, yeah, it's garbage. So yeah, if they say it sounds like technical death metal, I'm proud of that. That's awesome. Progressive, yeah, the elements are there for sure. When I think it, but someone could call Dream Theater a progressive metal band because they have a lot of metallic elements, but we don't sound like Dream Theater. So I think the death is very important to keep into the classification, because that's what separates you. And I think the vocals are what really makes it death metal too, for sure. And I think, yeah, because if you want to call it progressive metal, then yeah, we'd be lumped in with a lot of bands we don't sound like. So you can split hairs if you'd like, but yeah, I'd say death metal. But if I had to call it anything, I would say, yeah, it's technically progressive death metal.
Okay. Oh, we are very close to this interview, guys. And for this aspect, what kind of plans do you have for this enduring spirit? Perhaps you will embark in tours. And in North, I saw that you will embark in some tours. Perhaps more gigs upcoming in Europe and in Asia, Australia, or perhaps you first come to Latin America. Who knows?
Fuck, that would be so sick if we did.
Yeah,
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was gonna say we're working on that stuff now. It's been kind of our goal to see how people react to the record, and then try to book shows and see what we're gonna do, because yeah, we didn't know exactly how people would feel about it, right? So we're gonna see what comes out in the wash, I guess, with where we end up. But yeah, sorry, go ahead, Derrick.
I think I don't know if we'll do any, maybe we do like one big US tour, and then I think we'll do like these little destination tours. I think there's a lot of places in the world we do want to hit. And the thing is we took like 3 years or 4 years to make that record, right? Since the last one. So I guess like we can wait 8 years for the next one. Yeah. And then in those 8 years, we can play everywhere on the planet, and I think that would be cool. I'd love to hit Europe again. I'd love to hit Latin America. I'd love to hit Australia. But I think now that we don't feel any pressure to like write more music yet, I think we can actually just take our time and hit all the places that we've ever wanted to hit.
Yeah, we have 4 albums and multiple like EP length tapes to draw from, so it's pretty easy for us to make a set list now that's like an hour. So nobody wants more than an hour, right? So we have to get picky with what we're gonna do. But it's nice because we have a lot to draw from, and we can figure out a couple sets and try to make everybody happy and play songs we enjoy. So there's no shortage of material to play, and that means people that love the new one will hear new songs, and people that love the old ones will hear old songs, and people that magically love both will be really, really thrilled. So yeah, we'll see. We'll figure it out now that it's out. We'll see how people react to it, and where we end up. But it's definitely something we want to do next year, is play a bunch of shows. We just played 2 here. We just played 2 in Canada. One we played here in Toronto the day the record came out, last Friday the 15th, and then we played Montreal the 16th. And they were really cool, and the
really
set list was really fun, and the response was really great. And before that, we had played a show where we played all of Manner of Infinite Forms in July, I believe, or maybe it was June, but it was the 5-year anniversary of the record. We played the whole thing at a really small venue, and it was super fun. Yeah. So we played 3 shows now, and they all felt good. So we still have our stage moves and everything's good. So yeah.
Okay.
So yeah.
As I said in the first question, we will talk about other kind of things, not just the music from Talmud, the album, the sensations, dynamics from this new one. So talking about other kind of aspects into the in the music industry in general. One thing one day I read an article about how how free will in entertainment is controlled or directed by the capital people or capital enterprises and
Yeah.
the algorithms. So, and it's not like the 80s or 90s anymore that you like because some of the color art you can find in the magazines at that time.
Yeah.
And within that article, it was said that the free will is lost completely, especially for the new generations who are looking for whatever they are on YouTube and Google and
Yeah.
asking for answers for Google these kind of answers. So, do you think that the free will within the area of entertainment is lost now? And how does this issue of algorithms affect your vision of making music?
That's interesting.
Um, yeah, I can try to answer that one. I don't think that's a really interesting question.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of evidence that points to that being pretty true. I don't think it's completely lost, but I do think it is more difficult. Um, it's hard not to say that and sound like an old person too, right? Because the older generation's always critical of the younger one when it comes to art, especially art and hobbies and interests and stuff. But it's a good point because the way that I consume music, I'm 38. The way I consume music in my youth is 100% different. And you're right now, that element of control. I think that there was still a lot of, I read, punk and metal magazines and stuff that were DIY, but I also read, rock magazines that were not DIY that were owned by, larger corporations. So there was that same sort of element there that you see in today's more digital world. Um, I think it's tougher to break through, but I do think there's still some like grassroots, uh, people and movements pushing forward the ideas and music and art that they think is vital. Um, the question is, what is going to be there to prevent it from being tainted by something larger? Because it's very hard to get your band on a bigger stage without compromising your own ideals. If you don't care how you get big, you have carte blanche to do whatever you want. You can go do music commercials and play corporate sponsored fests. And if you don't care, then you're good. If you do care and you have, ethically, you don't want to do these things, it's a much harder route to let's say try and make a living from your music because you're blocked at so many corners by these things, and it's way harder to get through to people without those because there's so much control that's exhibited on how we consume everything, because it all comes through our phone and our computer and to a lesser extent our television. But we don't read print anymore. Print is as dead as it's ever been. And yeah, no. So to answer your question, what I think is, I think it's still possible. I still see a lot of sincerity. I see a lot of sincerity with younger kids. And sometimes you can use these tools, these corporate tools, to your advantage and build something for yourself and build something organic that they can't reach. I went to a show recently and saw a couple bands, and it was the most diverse crowd of kids I'd ever seen at a show. I've been going to shows for 23 years, and it was a lot of young kids, every type of kid you could imagine, so many different identities and, genders and races, and everyone was just having this great time. And it didn't feel contrived. I felt like that was a very real environment I was in, a very sincere and real environment. So those people may have found that music or those shows using these, apps or whatever, but I feel like they've made something that's this is all around the world too, I'm sure. Kids will find a way to make something theirs, and they'll live in their own little ecosystem, and we'll see what happens as those bands progress in age, and some of those bands will break up, some of those bands will try to stay true to a code that they establish, and some of those bands will do whatever it takes to be popular. But it is, yeah, it's a very fine line to walk. So no, it's not impossible, but it's way harder than it was. But it was never easy.
It was, yeah, it was like, I mean, I guess at some point in life when you're young, there's something in you that wants something more. I mean, like, you're listening to the music you hear, and maybe it's okay, but then maybe you hear something from like an older brother or like the friend of like an older brother from your friend who puts on maybe like a different album that you've never heard before, right? Like something unlike anything you've heard, and that sets something off in your mind where you're like, there's more to music than just what I hear on the radio. This is how I felt when I was young. And then it's the quest to discover that stuff, going to CD stores and whatnot. And now though, you know, what's nice, like for as good for as kind of horrible as like the internet is, it is also kind of awesome, because if I hear a record from a band I've never heard before, I'll be so drawn to it. And then I'm like, well, I want to know more about this. And I can go online, I can look the band up, I can see what other albums they have, and I can, you know, really just dive into a band that I never maybe would have heard before. But I think what's there though is the desire to know, right? And I feel like, I hope that's the thing, that I hope there's still enough people that exist that are not just happy with what they can find easily. It's the search, right? Like, you know, when you,
I was going to say, those kids are always going to exist. I think they're just, you know, there may be a minority, but people, that's how we were when we were younger.
Yeah.
And we spoke earlier about playlists, you know, and how, you know, kids want to hear singles or whatever. You know, a lot of these algorithm generated playlists are just gold mines of music. So if you like, let's just say you like Obituary, and you listen to Obituary, Cause of Death, Slowly We Rot on Spotify, and then it recommends you Autopsy, and you listen to, you know, Twisted Massive Burnt Decay, and you're like, oh yeah, this is a good song. And then you get these suggestions for all these things. I mean, you can look at a 200 song playlist that has some deep cuts on there. You know, it's kind of almost a shortcut in a lot of ways, because when I was younger, you really had to dig to find that stuff. You had to read zines. You had to look at the thanks list on a record and see who was thanked. You had to see what other bands the members were in, what bands they were in before, maybe, things like that. You know, and I come from like finding out about, you know, the big four, where I was a fan of, like, especially Metallica and Megadeth, I was a big fan of. And then later Slayer, and then to like a lesser extent Anthrax, even though I do enjoy Anthrax. But you know, you had to kind of do your homework to find that stuff out. And now, yeah, if you're 14 and you decide you're going to take a leaning towards, you know, death metal, and you listen to 4 or 5 albums, you might get suggestions, and all of a sudden you're listening to Morpheus Descends or something that, you know, I didn't hear till I was in my 20s. You know, and that's kind of cool, because there will always be those kids that want to hear records, and there's always going to be kids love the cult shit, man. So I think kids are always kind of you know, some kids are trying to seek stuff out, and some will be happy just listening to a algorithm generated playlist for the rest of their days.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, one thing that if I correctly understand about this is now that everything is personalized, and there are more strange technical progressive things in many bands of the planet, what do you think will happen to the next generation when listen to music that is very personal? Would we be talking about the close war for a new bands, because there will no longer a song on the radio, because they prefer to listen to more personalized playlists, play artists? So what's your opinion?
What do you think?
Well, you know, radio's been dying forever. I still listen to the radio when I'm in the shower. And it is so antiquated. I find it comforting in a way, because it's always stayed the same throughout my entire life. Like, the radio still sounds like it did in 1991. Yeah, but it is a dinosaur. And yeah, you're right with you know, personalization. You know, with computers and artificial intelligence, like figuring out what we like, or feeding us what it wants us to like, which, as you had kind of pointed out, the insidious element to this whole thing, because, you know, it's not necessarily our friend. I would say actually it's not our friend at all. It's all here for consumption, you know, and that is I think the most dangerous word that has sort of reared its head in today's modern internet age, is the words consumption and content, because they're reducing content to something like it's just there to entertain you for a moment. It's like a child dangling keys. Oh, here's some content. Like, I don't want to think about anything that I consume as content. It makes it sound like you're eating fucking food. It sucks. Like, that's not what I want. I don't want to be entertained like I'm brain dead. That's my like worry, is that that's going to become the norm. And you hear people very offhandedly referring to things as content, like that's what they're comfortable with now. even the term content creator is just a nicer way to say somebody who just, makes stuff on the internet. And that's not to say they're talentless, because there's lots of people that make cool things, but content creator is just such a sterile way to say it. It's brutal. So yeah, I worry about how this is going to go, because if it's snowballing and it's continuing to snowball, and it is getting more and more like we're relying on systems to give us things we like and spoon feed us, and we don't have to search anymore. Yeah, we're very vulnerable to losing a lot of things. You're losing the desire to search for things. That's been a great passion of mine, is searching for things, finding where things come from. And that was very, for me, like kind of like reading interviews and things like that. Like I lived for that stuff in my youth, and it feels like a lot of like a lost art now. So yeah, I mean, I know what you're saying for sure. I know what you're getting at. I guess it just depends. Yeah, the pessimistic part of me says that, yeah, it's like a very negative road to be on for sure. But I do think people who want to know things are always going to exist, and I think that's going to be the diehards that are going to keep things alive, keep the flame burning. But we'll see. I mean, yeah, like a lot of these things feel like they're on life support, but also, there's a lot of young kids that just take it all in. I do also kind of cringe a little when I see kids listening to music and going to a website like Rate Your Music and just logging everything they listen to like it's a game, or not even a game. Like it's this kind of just clinical. Oh, I listened to this once. 3.5 out of 5. It's like, I logged 10,000 records on Rate Your Music. It's like, bro, who the fuck cares? Like, this isn't the point of music. Like, if you don't like it, don't come back to it. If you love it, it's going to be part of your life. I understand the compulsion to intellectualize all these things too, and I like collecting things just as much as the next person who enjoys, amassing, music or film or video games or whatever. But there is a kind of an odd. I struggle to understand the motivation of some people when it comes to how they enjoy things. So, yeah, but I mean, like I said before, this is how it often goes with the older generation. Like I'm 38 now. When I was 15, 38-year-olds didn't understand me either. And I told, oh, you're just a fucking dinosaur. So it's like, well, I have to give the young kids the benefit of the doubt but I know what you mean. The way I see it now is, yeah, it's a bit disconcerting.
I think for me, something I fear is, the attention span shortening. Like, it's like if people are writing music for like an app, to use on TikTok or something, it's like, right, like it's going to be 26 seconds. It's like you have less than 30 seconds to try to capture somebody, and maybe you do, but maybe they don't even want to hear the whole song. I remember talking to someone, and he was he's a wedding photographer, and he said that he was shooting the wedding party, and someone had an iPhone out, like while they're, to listen to music while they're doing this. And no, they could not get through a full song. Someone would be like, go to the next song, right? And it's like, I think now, like as someone who writes music, I almost don't, if the people who want to consume music like that, like I'm okay if they don't hear my stuff. I want to just have people who want to hear the whole record interact with it. So my fear is like, does the younger generation just get fixated on singles and want to make either shorter music or not put out full albums and just put out a song? You know what I mean?
Or speed up old songs, which is like a whole thing now. And it's interesting you had mentioned singles earlier, because it's almost like things are reverting in a weird cyclical way, because you go listen to the great rock singles of the 50s and 60s, and they're all like 2 minutes or 1 minute and 51 seconds. You go watch, American Bandstand, those songs are 2 minutes. And now with the streaming age, there's albums out there that I feel are almost built for streaming, where here's our full length, it's 26 songs and they're all 2 minutes. Like the amount you get, if you listen to it 4 times, it's 108 streams. Like it's almost like people are thinking they're adapting to the modern system of how they're getting paid. our record's going to be huge ipso facto. Let's make it 26 songs. Like, it's a way to work around. Whereas, you know, a doom band, a band like Bellwitch, I wonder how, you know, they put out their Mirror Reaper album, and I believe it's one 74-minute song. I might be off on the time, but every time I listen to a longer song now, the cynic person in me thinks like, I wonder how much they get paid for this. Like, do they get paid one stream for, like, do Sleep get one stream for Dope Smoker? Like, that doesn't seem fair. You should win a fucking award for being able to get through the whole record in today's day and age. Like, it's 54 minutes or whatever. So yeah, the attention span, that's a good point Derrick made, is really spooky. And he's right. People love to skip through shit.
Yeah.
I wish, you know, I love putting on a full album listening. I'll listen to it 3 or 4 times in a row. But you know, that's how things are different. The speeding up thing really weirds me out when I hear an old song, especially like a song from the 90s, like some Euro club banger. You know, you hear something like Cotton Eye Joe or Blue by Eiffel 65, like these songs that were part of like the cultural DNA, and now it's 15% faster, and it's almost like, did you
Strange.
do that? Well, it's very, very odd. It's like a totally strange phenomenon. Yeah, I can't see why, but I notice it more and more as time goes on. People speeding things up, and I find it really weird.
Well, one of the last questions, and as you mentioned, more people are personalize the taste, the music, the playlist with this aspect, and obviously we're in years where there are no more bands that fill stadiums, and everything is personalized by tastes as colors, as I mentioned. And now, as you mentioned, Derrick, the TikTok trends are really silly and even implausible for the new generation, creating some kind of annoying things. But I don't have TikTok, so I don't really care about it. Where do you think? So where do you think the art enters in this generation that already consume little or nothing physical material and only take music as accompaniment to do their things, wash the car, plan the work, dress the children, etc. It's not like the 80s or 70s, 80s, and 90s when you got the CD and you paid a lot of attention to CD all 3, 4, 5, 6 days, even 20 days, 20 times you hear the same CD in a week. So, but now, just the music accompany their diary labors.
Yeah, it's funny. Like, our bandmate Max, he has a CD player in his car, and he keeps like 10 CDs in his car, and he's like, "This is what I like to listen to when I drive." Like, I change it up, and yeah, well, the fear is, you know, let's use the new Tumult record for example, right? Lots of people have heard it at least once, and maybe they're like, "This is great," but maybe they never listen to it again, right? But back in the day, like if you bought that on CD, you were just gonna keep hitting play, right? Like, yeah, I feel like because there's so much at your fingertips that you can start to treat it as disposable. I'm lucky. Like when my day job, like I work at a cafe, and there will be times in the day where I'm working by myself for like 3 hours. At the end of the day, you know, you're closing, and I'm like, I think about in the morning, what albums will I listen to that day when I'm alone at work? Like, what's on my mind? Like, what do I want to listen to? And because it's usually quiet after like 4 p.m. in the shop, because everybody's on laptops, right? I can just play whatever record I want, and I can really like just sit with it and let it sink in. And I really value that time. And then like I will have a list where it's like records I've been meaning to check out. I'll play it after the shop closes up in case it's like too off-putting for customers. And then when I get home, like I want to listen to it again. And I still buy records. And when I buy a new record, I try to not put it away. Like I won't file it, right? Like I'll put it on a different shelf and I'll see it there. So then I'm staring at it. I'm like, I got to put it on. You put something on when you cook dinner, and yeah, you're right. Like but for me, like I've just never been, it's just always been, the full experience and being able to look at the pictures and the liner notes. But I feel like, you know, we pay a lot of attention to layout, design, artwork and whatnot. Even though most people will be consuming our music digitally, right? And this is the thing, they don't, like, streaming services don't offer a digital version of the CD jacket or something, right? You know, when you buy a CD and you pull it out and it's like, you know, 8 panels or whatever, both sides, and you're looking through it. You can't do that digitally, right?
No.
I'm actually shocked that they haven't tried to somehow do that. Because I'm sure there's a way that they can somehow, if they can learn how to make money off doing that, then they'll do it, right?
Yeah, that's true. That's exactly what will happen.
But I remember I was talking to someone a bit older than me at the park across the street from my house where I take my dog, and we were talking about like his CD collection. And I was like, do you ever pull out CDs? And he was like, no. And I was like, do you have a CD player anymore? And he was like, no, I don't. He's like, just in my car. And I was like, because everybody just uses their phone, and they have Bluetooth speakers, right? Like I don't even know how many people have like a proper stereo anymore. But I was like, you should really just pull some CDs out and put it in your car. And then you're not looking at your phone either while you drive, which is like maybe better for you. And then, yeah, like, you know, you pop a CD in, you hear 3 songs, you stop to go do something, and then you pick up where you left off, right? Like if the CD player can remember that. And then, you know, you're hearing the record throughout your day. Yeah, like that stuff, it is getting lost. But I don't think it should discourage people from still wanting to make art like that. You know what I mean? You just have to be comfortable with maybe that, like, the art that you make will not be your meal ticket. It may, or you know what I mean? Like, we've been really fortunate that a lot of people like Tomb Mold, and we have a lot of opportunity with it. But I think even if we made the same record and only 100 people heard it or less than that, I think we would still be just as excited about the record we made. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it'd feel super important to us for sure.
You find meaning and joy in the process of making it, right? And no one can take that away from you. Like, that's yours forever. And that's, so you try to, I always try to take a glass half full approach, and I try to be optimistic. But yeah, it's kind of bleak the way people treat just art in general these days. Like,
it is.
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say it's. I was thinking about it as you were talking. It's interesting too, though, because we were talking about, you know, younger generation listening to playlists, and you know, I've been encouraged to listen to playlists before. Oh, you got to check out this playlist. Like, you got to check out this jazz fusion playlist. You know, you like jazz fusion, you'll really enjoy it. You know, like a Japanese jazz fusion. It's a bunch of bands that sound like Cassiopeia. I'm like, oh, I like Cassiopeia. I'm lambasting these younger kids for their lack of attention span. Here's what happens to me. I put on the playlist, and I hear a song I like at work on the playlist. I stop the playlist and I go find
to the album. Yeah.
So I can't even get through a playlist. So, what do you think of that playlist? I'm like, oh, I heard that third song and I had to go check out the rest of the album. Like, oh, well, did you go finish the playlist? It's like, no, I'm listening to the album now. I'm listening to that Makoto Mishihuda record like over and over. So yeah, it's easy to, you know, I can't even get through a playlist myself. So maybe it's just differing types of attention span, you know, like I'm drawn to an album, so other people are drawn to this variety of things. So, you know, it's hard to say. Sorry, I had to make that point because I was like, maybe I'm the one with the problem.
Well, that's nice. That's nice. Well, guys, the sad times arrive at this interview. I hope you enjoyed this one like me, a terrific guys.
Yeah,
love your 4 albums. Really, really appreciate this interview because I'm a huge fan since the beginning to now. I have my long sleeve t-shirt.
Sick.
From Tom Mold, so I'm a huge fan from you. Perhaps we want to add something to your Latin American fans that expect someday to came here with Tom Mold, a full tour here, perhaps next year, who knows, and Metalerum followers.
We'll definitely try to get down to Latin America at some point. If not in the next year, in the next 2 years. But we'll try. Anything's possible.
Yeah, that's for sure. We can do sort of anything now, or try to do anything. It feels like a lot of doors are open that weren't open maybe 4 years ago. So as long as people like the record, and you know, then why not, right? It'd be cool.
And anyone who listened to the full thing, thanks for listening. It actually means a lot. Even if you only listen to it once, if you gave it your full attention, that's great. We appreciate it. Yeah. So thank you.